All right, we've got a ton of live updates coming at you. One from CAL FIRE, one from the Coast Guard, and one from Genoa Golfs. This one coming at you from CAL FIRE.
Good morning, Mike. You know, one of Lake Tahoe's most noted and most famous residents, Mark Twain, once said that the forests in Lake Tahoe were so special and unique you could ride full speed on a horse through the middle of the forest and never lose your hat. But that wasn't the case when Ben got here, because this whole area was originally deforested when they were building Virginia City. And this is all new growth, so as a result, it did not grow in healthy.
That's right. It was a combination of really that Comstock era logging period where most of the forests in Tahoe were clear cut. And then following that, we introduced the fire suppression system into the equation. So we began putting a lot of fires out. So fire was not a natural part of the ecosystem in the 1900s like it was before the Comstock era.
So this is very similar to what the forest looked like before it was clear cut.
It's getting there. So this actually is a fuels reduction project that was done last year. And what you can see is how widely spaced the trees are now. And what's important about that is it provides multiple benefits to us as residents in the Lake Tahoe Basin. Namely, it's more fire resistant. It allows us to be able to fight the fire on the ground so the fire doesn't go up into the crowns of these trees. Number two, during a drought time like this, the forest is more able to resist the effects of drought and stress because of the lack of water in the forested environment, which means that when we get insects and diseases introduced into the forest, they're able to fight those off, and we're able to have this healthy forest.
Well, now, when you talk about all that clear cut that was done, it created an environment that fire was not coming through on a regular basis. But that's not the way it was supposed to be. For thousands and thousands of years, fire came through on a regular basis, and it burned the lower levels and not the crowns of the trees.
That's absolutely right. So on the east side of Lake Tahoe, for instance, the fire return interval, the natural return interval, was 7 years.
7 years between fires.
7 years between fires is what you would expect to see. And that's based on just studies of tree rings and things like that to try to develop what that history was. Over here, it's about 20 years. So naturally, fire would have come through this area every 20 years and cleaned the forest out and kept it healthy.
Now, when you say clean the forest out, you're talking about the fire burns the lower branches, it burns out the pine needles, it burns out the pine cones. And how does that really help it become healthier?
Well, what it does is it keeps the trees well spaced. It doesn't allow a lot of competition. So when you take fire out of the equation, what ends up happening is you get a lot of undergrowth. And that undergrowth continues to grow, and pretty soon you have a very, very dense forest. So imagine a garden. If a garden has a lot of weeds in it and a lot of other plants, that garden is not going to grow and be healthy. So here, when you're able to thin it out and provide those trees enough room to grow, they have plenty of sun, plenty of nutrients, plenty of water, and it's just overall more healthy.
All right, well, this is really a very good example. This is what CAL FIRE Forest Service are trying to do with the forest in Lake Tahoe, is create the natural forest. It will keep us from having fire problems, which have been very scary over the last few years.
That's right. And in fact, we work really well together through the Tahoe Fire and Fuels team to identify areas within the Lake Tahoe Basin that are high priority for fuels reduction work. And so we want to make sure that we protect our communities.
Well, thank you very much. And by the way, I forgot to say hello to our viewers in Northern California. Hope you're enjoying our broadcast and this little story about fuel reduction and how we're trying very hard here to prevent these big fires from occurring, particularly in the Lake Tahoe area. Chris Anthony is going to be back with me in the next half hour. We're going to be talking about some defensible space.
That's right. So we'll go to a home and we'll look at defensible space and what it is and how you get there.
This is a very important segment, so make sure you stay tuned to Lake Tahoe Television to learn about defensible space for your home. With Chris Anthony, I'm Dan McLaughlin for Lake Tahoe Television, back into the home with the defensible space king himself, Mr. Mike Perrin.
I'm loving these throws back to me. Thank you, Danny. Very good content there, guys.